Salibonani ngiyalibingelela lonke. Greetings. My name is Zanele Dube. Ngiyalamukela ku The Girls Table podcast, where we talk about issues that affect us as young women. Lamuhla ngifuna sikhulume nge-budget formulation process. I am joined by Samantha from Science of Hope, ozasenza sizwisise kabanzi njengabomama abancane as young women ukuthi kuqhakatheke kanganani ukuthi sibe yingxenye yokufoma kwe-budget. Ngiyakwamukela Samantha. Umbuzo wami oqala uthi wona, what is the budget formulation process and why is it crucial for effective governance? Sicela usichazele kabanzi siswethu ngale ndaba.
So budget formulation is the process that leads us to coming up with the budget. It's part of a bigger process which is called the budget cycle, and I'll touch on it later. But the budget formulation phase is a critical phase in which the Ministry of Finance gives out what we call the budget strategy paper. And basically, he's in the part where he is leading into coming up with this proposed budget. So he will formulate that budget strategy paper, and basically what that paper does is to show everyone who's going to contribute to the policy direction and to show the strategy direction of the next year's budget. We've got many needs. We've got also laws that govern what we should be prioritizing. For example, we've made commitments through various legislation that, 5% is going to go to social protection, 15% is going to go to education, things like that. So, and there's also the Constitution of Zimbabwe. And the government of Zimbabwe being the one that gives us our rights, they've got that obligation to ensure that our rights are being realized. So you'll see that they have to put in place things like BEAM so that they can help students who can't pay their fees. They also have to put in place things like AMTO to help people who can't pay for their medication or their health services. So at the end of the day, that huge budget, we also have climate change. We also need jobs. We also need to start our businesses. All those things have to be taken into consideration. So the budget strategy paper helps us to then say, this year, what are we going to focus on? That we find that they're the most critical. So it's a critical document in the budget formulation phase that people should look at and see what is the direction that we're coming to. And it's very, very crucial for governance because people should understand where we're going. In the budget formulation phase also, we have the public consultations, because this one we are now trying to get the input from the people. Section 141 of the Constitution mandates that Parliament should consult citizens when it comes to matters such as the budget. And it's therefore mandatory that they go out, they seek public opinion for that. So besides the citizens, there are also government entities that also fit into the budget. So there are various stakeholders that come up and say, this is what we want to do. Also, another critical thing is that the citizens must make sure that they understand what is the policy direction. We're also a signatory of various frameworks. Remember, I mentioned that we've got the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, we've got the SDGs, we've got all these instruments that we have signed, whether it's on a regional basis or at the regional level or the international level. We also have our own domestic law. All these should be complied to. We also have the National Development Strategy 1. That is also another critical thing that we're looking at. We're saying we're part of a bigger mandate to have the SDGs achieved by 2030. So we must look at, okay, what is Zimbabwe prioritizing in the SDGs and how does it also get into the budget formulation phase? So all these things are things that are considered.
Ngiyakuzwa sisi Samantha lapha ngiyakuzwa uyakhuluma. I hear you talking of 15% to education, 5% going to social protection, policy directions and everything. Ministry of Finance is leading. Ngiyakuzwa kikho konke okukhulumayo. And the section 141 of the constitution mandates ukuthi the parliament should consult our citizens so that we all have a say in this budget ekhona eyenzakalayo. So can you walk us through the key stages of the budget formulation process?
So like I said, the budget cycle has various stages within it, of which the budget formulation is just one phase. So we also have the budget approval stage. This is the stage that is done by Parliament. So when all those inputs are collated, the Minister of Finance then does a draft budget. And that's the one that we hear them say, okay, we are now doing, he's now announcing the budget. He just puts it in the public domain and says, okay, this is what we're going to do. We have decided to have this horticulture fund. We have decided to have these revolving funds. So this is also a critical stage where, as the citizens, we must see what exactly is being said in the budget. There are proposals that will come. For example, they can put a proposal and say, okay, we are now putting up the toll gate fees. We're now putting up maybe the passport fees like what was done last time. We're proposing a tax on this. We're proposing a tax on that. So we must be alert as citizens. That is how we participate. But now at the budget approval stage, the most active player who's got power is the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So at this budget approval stage, you have to look for your member of Parliament and tell them that, hey, this that was put, it doesn't work for us. I remember there is a budget that proposed a $50 tax on cell phones. I think it was in 2022. A $50 tax on cell phones, that if you are buying a cell phone, you have to pay an extra $50. That is a kind of a cell phone tax. It was a proposal. So remember, when the Minister of Finance comes, first it's a proposal. Then they have to debate it and then approve it. So what we did was we joined with other organizations and then we had to lobby with the portfolio committee on ICTs and all that and tell them that no, we can't have this $50 tax being levied on citizens. Why? It infringes on their right to access information. It also hinders them from participating, even in the business life. Most people are now doing business online. They're doing this and levying that tax. Other communities are poor. You have to look for your interests. That's basically what I'm saying. Well, at the end of the day, that $50 tax was just scrapped. It wasn't levied. There are also some things that we can have oversight and say, okay, as a woman, it affects me that, there are no sanitary pads. You can talk to the minister and say, okay, we need, we need to scrap VAT on sanitary pads. These are things that you have to look out for, in the budget approval stage. But the most important key player who's got the power to do anything is the minister. So you have to look for your minister, and tell them that, oh no, this proposal it's not good. This proposal is not good. The other thing that you have to look at is the pre-budget seminar. It's usually live streamed by Parliament and other organizations such as Open Party. It's a critical place where people or the Parliament is debating on the budget. Various stakeholders are also coming there, so you need to look out for that. After the budget approval stage, it's now the budget implementation stage. Implementation is basically disbursing that money so that it can do what it was said to be doing. If we're saying, okay, we're releasing a horticulture fund, we're releasing this kind of money to the Women's Bank so that the women can get the loans. Women's Bank, Youth Bank, they all get allocations from the budget, and also the various ministries. So it's now the implementation stage. What you can also look for are the quarterly reports that the government entities will be submitting. Could this year we received this money and we did this and that. All those quarterly reports are out.
Ngiyayizwa le ndaba Samantha. Bese ngibuza lapho ukuthi how do stakeholders influence the budget formulation, specifically young women? Ngiyazwisisa we've got government, ama-executive, ama-civil society organization, ama-private sectors, citizens, media nayo, they've got influence. But how do the young women specifically influence the budget formulation?
There are various stakeholders that influence the budget formulation. And as a young woman, you're a critical stakeholder because you have a say in everything that is taking place. If we look at the Open Budget Survey, this is a survey that is done for many countries. They expect that the citizen is active in all the stages, whether it's budget formulation, budget approval stage, you are supposed to be active. The audit stage, you are supposed to be active. Zimbabwe has been failing in, citizen participation in some of the areas. We want to commend the citizens and the government that citizen participation during the budget formulation phase, it went up. I think now we're over 60, and we're way above the basic average of all the countries, which I think now stands at around 40-something%. So that's a huge leap. And we are saying, as young women, we mustn't remain behind. In all those things, you have to look, trace what is happening in the budget, how is it being implemented, the quarterly reports, what is happening. So at the end of the day, the citizen is a critical stakeholder and must be there in everything. Members of Parliament are also another critical stakeholders, which as young women you should engage. Know who is your member of Parliament, have their number. When there's something that it comes up, usually some members of Parliament have got WhatsApp groups. Join the WhatsApp group. We are member of Parliament. What the member of Parliament also has, remember, is what we call the Constituency Development Fund. This is a fund that is disbursed to your MP specifically, and they have to discuss with you what should the CDF be used for. Sometimes they use it to drill boreholes, but as young women, is that what you want? You have to be to engage your MP and say, "Aye, Tina, we want a school," or "Tina, we want this." Of course, the CDF, it's a bit low, on the low side. There has been complaints about the CDF before, which I think we can discuss in other platforms, but maybe just to let you know that your MP gets some money from the budget and they have to use it for development of the constituents. So we also have to be actively involved. There's your government or your ministry. They are also involved in the budget process because they are the ones who are the implementers of the budget. So usually you'll see, maybe if you need a beam, you go to the social welfare and say, "Aye, Tina, we need this beam." Some of the inputs that are disbursed during the budget implementation. All those women's bank, these are entities that you have to look out for that are also implementing the budget. Also during the auditor stage, you also have to look, the Auditor General is the critical player, because they are now looking at all those, how the budget was implemented.
Okay, Samantha, what strategies can be employed to ensure young women's voices are heard in the budget consultation?
Another critical stakeholder is the civic society organization or girls' table. They are very important because, number one, they are unpacking for you what is the budget. They are also a good player. You take, they are closest to you, that you take your complaints. They highlight them. They also have the convening power to meet, for you as a young woman, to meet your member of parliament. So AMA organizations and Jabo Girls Table, they are organizations that you must be in constant touch with. When you are alone, you can do yes and say, oh, my honorable, what is this? But there's power also in numbers. And organizations such as Girls Table, they've got that convening power to say, okay, we are now putting the MP here, and we're putting the citizen here, and you are a lot of other people, but do raise your concerns. It's also critical because they also have the power to look for resources for funding and say, okay, there's this issue in the community. We need to draft a position. When members of parliament are working, and when policymakers are working, maybe others in the government, they need the research. They need the numbers. So organizations such as Girls Table have got a unique opportunity to conduct research on behalf of the citizens, to make your case compelling to the one who's listening. And there are a lot of strategies that can be employed. For example, meetings with the portfolio committee. Those are critical meetings that you can convene. And there are also other strategies like, raising awareness about the dates of the public consultations, raising awareness about the pre-budget seminar. All these are critical spaces where the budget is being discussed and formulated. There's also taking part in terms of the call papers, and where you can contact even stakeholders in government to kind of tell them what is required. There are also umbrella organizations, Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe. These are critical stakeholders that are constantly asked for input, and through the Girls Table, you can reach those umbrella organizations so that your issue can be heard timeously.
Ngithukubonga lapho Samantha. Now at our last stage, ngithanda ukubuza i-advice ongasinikeza yona. What advice would you give us as young women looking to get involved in the coming budget consultation? Yini ongasisiza ngakho, i-advice ongasinikeza yona ukuthi young women go out there and do this and do that? Yipi advice ongasinikeza yona ukuthi lathi sibe involved in this coming budget consultation?
I can't overemphasize the need for people to take part. Remember, you're a critical stakeholder, and in any case, you contribute to the national pace through your taxes. Says October, there's a proposal, Yama tax, our Baba tax, there's VAT that you pay, which is, I think it's 15%. When you are transacting on your phone, there's a tax that is taken by government to feed into all that national pace. So you are a critical stakeholder because you must see where is the money that you are contributing to going. When you are a worker, you are keeping a tax. If you are an owner of a company, you are keeping a tax. So you must be interested. You must be interested. And this role that the citizen plays is critical, so that the government doesn't think that we are not interested, so that the government also knows that we know what we want from Ismali Ishambal. So I can't overemphasize the need for you to participate, to make your needs known, to make the improvements in your community. We need you as a young woman. We need the various voices to come there and say what we want. And also, it's your constitutional right. I mentioned that Section 141, it talks about the parliament being mandated to go to the people. So Lina, njengamo mama, or the young women, liqakathekile kakhulu with this process. I can't overemphasize the need for you to go find information, ask an organization or girls table. They are placed to have all these, their ears on the ground, and to be advising us to say, okay, let's also move in this direction. The budget strategy paper, we have to read. Ama groups, they are reading and they are putting across compelling, evidence, compelling asks. Asibale nini that, and come to the table prepared. Because I've always said this process, it's a contest of ideas. And if your idea lacks that kind of a basis, any power, so that in Jarabafa's, let's come to the table. Asoskati sokuthi sibe sizwelana. Isikhathi sokuthi lathi we come to the table and say, okay, this is what we want, give our proposal, have the facts and findings. Nobody is just going to hand over izinto just because you are a woman. I think in Daba isikhathi leso sesadlula. So isikhathi sokuthi lathi we come to the table, we offer and we challenge, we give challenging and compelling evidence, challenging figures. Sibatshela lathi izinto esizifunayo. We are a critical stakeholder. We are above 52% of the population. 52% the population of Zimbabwe. We are critical. And Zimbabwe is a young country. Abanengi ngama youth. So you are a critical stakeholder and you have to be listened to. But asiyenze nini izinto ezilomkantsho, izinto ezilomsobho. Not just to say hayi bazasizwela ngoba singabomama. Hayi lokho akusoze kufa kwayenzakala. Let's come to the table. Asibale nini and do right by ourselves and by our government.
Thank you so much, Sis Samantha. Into engiyifunda ke yonke lento ukuthi thina as young women kuqakathekile kakhulu futhi ukubana sibe part of this budget formulation process, because we have got many issues affecting us as young women, and if voice yethu ingekho ku budget sizo affecteka kakhulu. We'll be greatly affected by lento ukuthi izidingo zethu kazisafikiswanga lapho kumele ziyefika khona, izicelo zethu kazisafikiswanga lapho kumele ziyefika khona. From me, your host Zanele Dube and the girls table. Thank you so much for listening. Cela liqhubeke lisilalela. Until next time, bye.
This project was made possible through a partnership between USAID Zimbabwe and ZimCord. The podcast is made possible by the generous support of the American people through United States Agency for International Development Zimbabwe. The contents are the responsibility of the Girls Table and do not necessarily reflect the views of USAID or the United States government.